The ship left without ceremony, its thrusters carving scars into the desert plain, as though they wanted to make sure the world remembered where abandonment had taken place. Dust settled slowly, curling around the still figure left behind. She blinked once, her long ears twitching faintly with the dry wind, and tried to imagine this wasn't real. But the silence pressed in like a heavy blanket, and reality refused to soften. Her people were gone. They had not even turned to look back. She lay there, unable to move more than her eyes and the faintest tilt of her lips. It would have been easier if she could cry, but her body, traitorous and uncooperative, refused her even that release. She told herself she was ready to die, ready to dissolve into dust, just like everything else on this strange planet. What she didn't expect was the sound of boots crunching against gravel, followed by a man muttering to himself. "Great. More junk. Just what I needed," the voice said, gruff but oddly warm. "Maybe it's a refrigerator this time. Or a toaster. Haven't had a good toaster in years." He came into her field of view, tall, a little scruffy, carrying a metal rod that looked too thin to be a proper weapon and too heavy to be useful for anything else. His clothes bore patches from at least 6 different fabrics, and his boots looked like they had survived 3 wars, maybe 4. He squinted down at her. "Oh," he said, "not a toaster. Not even close. Unless toasters suddenly grew ears. Long ones, too. You're not going to start making toast, are you?" She would have laughed if her lungs had allowed. Instead, her eyes widened just enough for him to notice. All right, you're alive." "Barely." "Fantastic. That's just what I needed today, a mystery space person." He scratched his beard, glanced at the empty sky where the ship had vanished, and sighed. "Looks like they dumped you. Harsh. And here I was feeling sorry for myself, because the vending machine at the outpost rejected my credits." He knelt beside her, lifted her with surprising care, and grunted, light as a crate of scrap, though not nearly as cooperative. Adjusting her in his arms, he glanced down. "If you bite, just know I've had worse dates." Carrying her wasn't easy. The desert stretched endlessly, broken only by jagged rock and the occasional flicker of alien insects that buzzed like faulty generators. Still, he trudged forward, muttering observations as though she were his only audience. "Ears like that. You'd pick up radio stations from 3 sectors over. Do you get podcasts? Hope you do. I could use something besides my own voice for company." She tried to focus on him, on the strange comfort of being carried rather than discarded. His smell was a mix of dust, oil, and faint citrus, oddly grounding. He kept talking, as if silence might kill him faster than dehydration. By the time they reached his dwelling, she had learned more about him than she expected. That he once tried to build a robot assistant, but it ran off with the vacuum cleaner. That he kept a pet cactus he swore was plotting against him, and that he never trusted doors that squeaked. The home itself was carved into stone, half buried beneath the desert floor. From the outside it looked like a junk pile with ambitions, but inside it pulsed with humming wires, mismatched furniture, and the faint glow of screens. He set her gently on a padded bench, and crouched down so his face was level with hers. "All right. Ground rules. 1, don't explode. 2, if you do explode, try not to take me with you. 3, if you're going to speak, let me know in advance so I don't scream like last time with the talking kettle." Her lips twitched. A laugh threatened, and though no sound came out, the sparkle in her eyes betrayed her. He saw it and grinned. "There it is. Good. Laughter means you're alive, even if it's the quiet kind." He rummaged through a pile of gadgets and pulled out a device that looked suspiciously like a coffee machine welded to a medical scanner. "Don't worry. I'm 90% sure this won't hurt. The other 10%? Well, let's hope I'm lucky today." He strapped wires to her arms, adjusted dials, and whispered nonsense encouragements as though coaxing a stubborn engine. Sparks danced across the screen. Numbers flickered, and he chuckled. "Congratulations. You're officially not dead. Can't say the same about my dignity." For the first time since the ship left, warmth stirred in her chest. The loneliness that had crushed her began to loosen its grip. He noticed a change in her expression and said softly, almost too softly for his usual humor, "You're not a burden." "Got it. Not to me. Her long ears twitched again, and though she still could not move, she felt a fragile thread of belonging stretch between them. Outside, the desert wind howled, but inside the strange, cluttered refuge, silence no longer felt like the end. It felt like the beginning. Morning came in his odd little home without fanfare, just the hum of the generator hiccuping awake, and the smell of something he claimed was breakfast. He walked past her bench, carrying a pan that smoked suspiciously. "Don't look at me like that," he muttered. "On my planet, burn is a flavor. Adds depth, and possibly lung damage." She blinked at him, her long ears twitching faintly, and he groaned. "Great, even aliens judge my cooking. You know what, fine. You get the toast that isn't completely blackened. Don't say I never spoil you." He set a piece near her lips, then realized she couldn't move. After a long pause, he sighed. "Right. Feeding duty. Add that to my resume. Scavenger, mechanic, occasional nurse, and now intergalactic waiter." He carefully broke off a piece and held it out, watching as she accepted it with quiet dignity. As she chewed, he fiddled with one of his machines. It resembled a chair, but with too many wires, a hover engine strapped awkwardly to its back, and a cup holder that seemed to have been stolen from a starship. "This," he announced proudly, "is the chair that almost flies. Capital letters. Trademark pending. Don't ask about version 1. It's currently embedded in the canyon wall about 5 kilometers east. But version 2. Safer. Probably." He wheeled the contraption closer, tapping its side like it was a beloved pet. "See, I figure you need mobility, right? Independence, dignity, and also a place to keep snacks. Very important. So I built this beauty. Shall we test it?" Her eyes widened with a mixture of curiosity and dread. He grinned. "That's the spirit. A little healthy fear keeps things interesting." It took him several minutes to strap her in, adjusting belts and muttering commentary, like a man preparing a launch. "Okay, if the seat vibrates too much, that's normal. If it starts singing, that's less normal. And if it launches you through the ceiling, well, try to enjoy the view." He flipped a switch. The chair hummed, lifted slightly off the ground, then jerked sideways, knocking over a table of scrap parts. "Good news," he said brightly. "It hovers. Bad news. It has a drinking problem. It leans left." She let out a sound, small but undeniably a laugh, and he froze. Then he laughed too, a loud, unrestrained noise that filled the room. "There it is. Proof my engineering brings joy. Or terror. Either way, success." Over the following days, life found a strange rhythm. He worked on repairs, scavenged parts, and talked endlessly about everything from his theories on why socks disappear in dryers, interdimensional wormholes, obviously, to his belief that his cactus really was watching him at night. She listened, sometimes with amusement sparkling in her eyes, sometimes with quiet sadness. One evening, as he adjusted the chair again, she managed to move her fingers, just a twitch, but enough to send the wires flickering. He saw it and nearly toppled over. "You moved. That's it, we're celebrating. Do you drink tea?" "Of course you do. Everyone drinks tea. Even murderous space empires probably have tea breaks. Hang on." He returned with 2 mugs, one chipped and steaming, the other set carefully in her lap, though she couldn't yet lift it. "There. Tea for 2. Romantic, isn't it? Just ignore the oil stains on the floor." She wanted to speak, to tell him thank you, but her voice still wouldn't obey. Instead, she tilted her head, long ears trembling, and he seemed to understand. "You don't have to say it," he said gently. "I get it. I've been alone a long time, too. People don't really stick around with me. Too weird, too talkative, too much beard, take your pick. But you're here, and I'm glad." Silence stretched between them, warm and not heavy this time. Then he ruined it, as always. "Also, you're officially the first person to survive my chair since the toaster. May its circuits rest in peace." Her laugh came again, fragile but real, and his grin widened. The chair sputtered, hissed, and finally settled into a steady hover. He patted it proudly. "See, together we're unstoppable. Or at least, somewhat mobile, which is practically the same thing." Outside, the desert wind rattled against the walls. Inside, amidst broken machines and failed inventions, two unlikely companions found a rhythm of laughter and small victories. Each twitch of her fingers, each joke of his, stitched them closer together, fragile threads forming something strong, something neither of them had expected when the ship abandoned her in the dust. And when he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed and eyes sparkling with mischief, he said, "Tomorrow, we upgrade this baby with cup holders on both sides. Because one simply isn't enough. That's science." He was bent over a pile of wires, muttering the way some people pray, when she moved her hand again. Not just a twitch this time. Her fingers curled, slow but deliberate. He froze, dropped the tool, and shouted so loudly the power grid flickered. "You did it." Movement. Actual, undeniable, non-imaginary movement. He spun in a circle, nearly tripping on the cactus. "This is bigger than the moon landing. This is bigger than when I discovered the microwave could cook socks. Well, actually that was just a fire, but you get the point." She smiled faintly, watching him celebrate as though he had just won a galactic lottery. He crouched in front of her, eyes shining. "Okay, fingers today, legs tomorrow. Then you'll be outrunning me in a week." Which isn't saying much. I get winded walking to the fridge. He rummaged through a box and pulled out a handheld scanner, cobbled together from at least 5 unrelated devices. "Let's see what's happening in there." He waved it over her arm, and the screen flickered with alien glyphs. "Good news. Your neural pathways are lighting up like a holiday tree. Bad news. I don't speak glyph. But I'm a fast learner. I once taught myself how to play the accordion in 3 days. Granted, the accordion exploded, but still." She laughed, breathy and brief, but it was enough to fill the room with something more than the hum of machines. The days that followed turned into a routine of experiments and triumphs. Each movement she regained was met with his over-the-top celebrations. When she managed to wiggle her toes, he baked a cake that looked suspiciously like bread wearing frosting. "Don't judge me," he said as he cut it. "It's symbolic. Toes, cake, both small victories." When she moved her leg an inch, he paraded her around the room in the almost fly's chair, shouting, "Ladies and gentlemen, behold, the unstoppable force of determination, and her sidekick, me." At night, when the desert winds howled outside, they sat together in the dim light of the generator. He told her stories of his life before this lonely outpost. Failed relationships, half-baked business ventures, and a brief but disastrous attempt to sell universal remote controls that worked on nothing but his neighbor's garage door. She listened, her ears flicking softly with each laugh, each sigh. In return, she began to share fragments of her world, her people. She explained in halting words that sometimes faltered, valued strength above all. Weakness was shame, and shame was exile. He frowned, stirring the pot of something that smelled edible but looked like sludge. That explains a lot. They didn't see weakness. They saw someone too real for their polished little empire. Their loss. My gain. She blinked at him, ears trembling, and whispered, "Burden." He set the spoon down and shook his head firmly. "Not a burden. Burdens are bills you can't pay, or washing machines that leak when company's over. Your company. Big difference." Silence settled, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was the silence of two people who had grown used to being alone and were slowly learning they didn't have to be. Her progress accelerated. With his makeshift machines, half alien biotech, half duct tape miracles, she managed to sit upright without support. He clapped so loudly the cactus fell off the shelf. "Progress. You're beating the odds, and the cactus is finally getting what it deserves." Double win. One evening, while adjusting the hover controls on her chair, he leaned too close, and the engine sputtered, sending him flying backward into a pile of scrap. She laughed so hard her chest shook, the sound pure and unstoppable. He groaned from the floor. "Glad I could be your entertainment. Next show at 9. Tickets are free, but tips are encouraged." But her dreams were less joyful. She woke some nights with tears she couldn't explain, whispers of her kin's cold faces still echoing in her mind. He found her staring into the shadows and sat beside her without asking questions. "You know," he said softly. I used to think being left behind meant I wasn't worth keeping. Turns out, sometimes people just don't see what they have. Doesn't mean you're broken. Just means they're blind. She turned her head slowly, long ears framing her face, and whispered, Blind? Blind, he confirmed. And if they weren't, they'd never have left you here for me to find. So maybe I owe them a thank you card, or a strongly worded letter. Depends on the postage. Her laugh mingled with a tear, a sound fragile yet full. For the first time, she let herself believe she wasn't just surviving. She was living again, piece by piece. And when she finally managed to stand, wobbly, clinging to his arm like a branch in a storm, he didn't cheer loudly. He just smiled, steady and quiet, and said, Told you. Not a burden. Never were. The desert wind rattled outside, but inside, laughter and small victories filled the air, stronger than any storm. He was patching a crack in the wall with a piece of scrap metal that clearly came from a food dispenser when the sensor screamed. The little console he had salvaged from a derelict freighter blinked red, throwing symbols he didn't like the look of. He smacked it twice, as though that would help. Well, that's not good. Red never means good. Unless it's a cherry pie. And this isn't pie. She was at the table, her long ears twitching nervously. He glanced at her, tried to smile, and failed. Visitors. Not the friendly, door-to-door vacuum sales kind either. The real deal. Ship just dropped into orbit. Signature looks a lot like yours. Guess your old pals finally remembered this planet exists. Her lips parted, a soft sound escaping. Fear. He hurried to her side, squeezed her shoulder gently. Relax. You're not going anywhere. Not unless you want to. And even then, only if their ship comes with cup holders. He pulled a lever near the floor. Panels shifted with a groan, revealing a narrow chamber beneath. Emergency basement. Every respectable home has one. This one's mostly for hiding snacks from the cactus, but it'll do. She stared at the opening, ears trembling. He nodded. I know. Dusty, cramped, and zero entertainment. But better than being dragged back by people who wouldn't know loyalty if it hit them in the face with a frying pan. The knock on the door wasn't a knock at all, but a thunderous thud from a scanner pulse. He shoved her gently into the chamber, whispering, Stay quiet. If you sneeze, make it sound like static. I'll handle the rest. He sealed the panel and opened the door with the world's least convincing smile. Two tall figures in polished armor stood there, their helmets reflecting the cluttered room. One raised a device. Unregistered biosignatures detected. Explain. Ah, he said brightly. Yes, that would be my cactus. It's unusually alive. I've been feeding it protein bars. Big mistake, apparently. The officers looked at each other. One adjusted the scanner. The signal is non-floral. He clapped his hands. Impressive vocabulary. You do great at pub quizzes. But no, nothing to see here. Just me, my cactus, and oh look, a toaster. He shoved a broken toaster in their direction. Rare collectible. Want it? They ignored the toaster. One began scanning deeper, the device beeping louder near the floor. Sweat rolled down his temple. He reached for his cobbled-together console, pressed a button, and static-filled noise erupted from the speakers. Alien frequencies twisted into something resembling karaoke. The officers froze. What is that transmission? That. He gestured wildly. Interstellar pop music. Very big around here. Locals love it. Me, I'm more of a jazz guy. But what can you do? Culture is culture. The scanner beeped again, but this time his generator hiccuped, sending a surge through the system. The noise turned into a distorted wail that made the officers flinch. Contamination detected, their device announced. Hazardous frequencies. Minimal value. They backed toward the door, muttering in their own tongue. One gave him a final glare. Your dwelling is unremarkable. Keep it that way. As soon as the door closed, he collapsed against it, laughing breathlessly. Unremarkable. Finally, someone gets me. He yanked the lever, pulling the panel open. She blinked up at him, relief written on her face. See, told you. Piece of cake. Well, maybe pie, but the good kind. She climbed slowly from the chamber, her body still trembling. He steadied her, brushed dust from her shoulders. "Hey, don't worry. You're safe. And if they come back, I'll just crank up the karaoke again. Nobody survives that twice." Her laugh came shaky but real. He grinned, leaning closer. "Besides, you're mine now. Not in the property sense. More in the I found you first, and I'm stubborn sense. And stubborn always wins." That night, while the desert winds rattled the walls, they sat together in the flickering glow of the generator. He poured tea into chipped mugs, slid one toward her even though her hands still shook too much to hold it. "They'll come back," she whispered. "Probably," he admitted. "But so will the sunrise. And the cactus. And my terrible cooking. You'll see. We'll outlast them." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. He raised his mug in a toast. To survival, to stubbornness, and to never, ever buying a karaoke machine. Her laughter mingled with the hum of the generator, pushing the fear back into the corners, where it couldn't touch them for now. "Do you want me to move straight into Chapter 5, the final one, in the same slow, 5,000 character style? Or would you like to give me a bit of direction on how you'd like the ending to feel? More romantic, more adventurous, or more bittersweet?" He was tinkering with the chair again, wires spilling everywhere, when she took her first unaided step. It wasn't graceful, more like a puppet tugged by invisible strings, but it was hers. He looked up, froze, and dropped the wrench on his foot. "Ah, worth it. Did you see that? Walking. Actual walking. Forget the chair. This calls for confetti. Shame I ran out after the incident with the mailbox." She smiled at his theatrics, her long ears trembling with effort as she steadied herself. He rushed to her side, but didn't grab her. He just hovered, ready but letting her balance on her own. She wobbled, then straightened, and the pride in her eyes was brighter than any machine he'd ever built. "See," he said softly. "Not a burden. Never were. You're unstoppable. Terrifying even. I should probably start charging rent." She laughed, shaky but real, and he knew the sound would stay with him forever. Days turned into weeks, and with each one she grew stronger. The almost flies chair was retired to a corner, where it occasionally hissed like it was sulking. She teased him about it, whispering, "Jealous," and he pretended to console the machine. "Don't worry, buddy. You'll always be my favorite death trap." Together, they began venturing outside. The desert that had once been her prison now stretched like an open invitation. With his arm steadying her and her ears flicking against the wind, they walked beneath skies littered with stars. He pointed out constellations, naming them ridiculous things. "That one's the intergalactic teapot. And over there, the angry llama nebula. Very rare." She corrected him with the true names from her culture, ancient stories of warriors and builders. He listened, fascinated, and sometimes pretended his names were better just to make her laugh. One evening, they spotted another patrol ship skimming the horizon. This time, she didn't tremble. She stood taller, leaning on her own strength. He raised a brow. "Want me to warm up the karaoke defense system?" She shook her head. "No need. They can search. They won't take me." He grinned. "That's my girl. Fierce. Terrifying. Remind me never to argue about chores." The patrol passed without incident, their scanners fooled once again by his jerry-rigged noise generator. He turned it off with a flourish. "See? Told you. Karaoke saves lives." Her laughter rang out, clear and unafraid. For the first time, she wasn't haunted by the shadow of being abandoned. She wasn't a discarded burden anymore. She was herself, alive, resilient, and free. One night, over mugs of tea and the hum of the generator, she asked the question that had been hovering between them. Why did you carry me home that day?" He sipped his tea, shrugged. "Because you looked like you needed someone. And maybe I did too. Turns out, two broken things can make something whole. Who knew?" She reached across the table, her hand steady now, and touched his. Her long ears framed her face as she whispered, "Whole." He squeezed her hand gently. "Exactly. Whole. And if anyone disagrees, we'll sick the chair on them." The chair hissed in the corner, as if in agreement. From then on, their life wasn't survival. It was living. She learned to walk farther, to laugh louder, to dream again. He learned that loneliness wasn't permanent, that home wasn't a place but a person. Together, they built something no abandonment could erase. The desert wind still howled, the patrol still came and went, the cactus still plodded silently from its shelf. But none of it mattered. They had each other. And as they stood one evening beneath the vast, star-cluttered sky, he pointed upward. See that cluster? That's the never-going-anywhere constellation. Shaped like us. Permanent. Unstoppable. Maybe a little weird-looking, but still. She laughed, leaned against him, and whispered, "Home." And for the first time in both their lives, it was true.